COOGAN'S Bluff is the first pairing up of director Don Siegel with star Clint Eastwood. They would go on to make quite a few films together, but COOGAN'S Bluff is kind of the precursor, I would say, to Dirty Harry. It has a lot of similarities to Dirty Harry, and I think it works really well as a companion piece to Dirty Harry, but kind of says different things in many ways. So it follows this story of Eastwood's cop, Coogan, who is an Arizona cop. He's a man who kind of has a habit of breaking the rules to get the job done. He just does whatever it takes. And it kind of works for him in Arizona. Not so much in New York, where he goes to pick up this prisoner named Ringerman, a man who's guilty of killing his own wife. And basically he's caught up in the system, the New York system. He has to do things by the rules, or he's expected to do things by the rules. And that just slows the process down. If he could just get the job done the way he wants to get it done, things would just go a lot smoother, a lot faster, and a lot more efficiently. At least that's the way he sees it. When he makes a bluff, that's hence the title COOGAN'S Bluff, to get this prisoner out because they don't want to release him yet. He's overdosed whilst in prison. He can't take him out until the medics sign him off, and he can't be bothered with all that. It's just bureaucracy. So he bluffs his way into this prison to get him out and get him on the plane. Unfortunately, before he can get him on the plane, some of Ringerman's buddies come along and help him escape, which obviously leaves Coogan in a bit of a tight spot because now he's got to try and recapture this man in his own eyes, even though the New York Police Department say, no, look, you've done your worst, now sod off, leave us to it, and let the judicial process do what it should do. Obviously, he's not happy with that, so he goes on a mission to track this man down, despite the reservations of the New York City Police Department. So, yeah, this, as I say, it's got a lot of correlations to Dirty Harry. Like, you watch Dirty Harry, and then you watch this, and you're like, oh, okay, I can see where they made the leap. This is also kind of a segue between Dirty Harry and a lot of the westerns that Eastwood made, because technically Eastwood's character here, Coogan, he's still in western mode. You know, he's still got the hat. He's still out there, you know, like catching criminals the way they did in the Old West. And he's kind of brought into the modern world when he has to go to New York. He's being told that he's a relic, essentially. We don't do things that way anymore. You've got to get with the program. Now, where Dirty Harry goes is a place that actually leans in to what Coogan's character might be doing. It says that he's a necessary evil, so to speak. And that's why it's kind of a really great sister film to this one, because this film actually goes the opposite way. It says that essentially you have to get with the program. You have to work within the system. You can fight the system all you want, but ultimately you will lose. You will still have to play the game the system's way. Because by the time we get to the end of the film, yes, Coogan has caught his man, so to speak, but he still has to hand him over to the New York City Police Department. He still has to go through the route of filing the paperwork that he should have filed back at the beginning. So he's actually achieved nothing. So I think ultimately Coogan's Bluff is a tale about the Old West having to meet the New East, so to speak. Hence the reason we go all the way to New York and not just stay over in the West. You know, we have this running joke throughout the film in which people are constantly saying that Coogan comes from Texas. You know, they look at his attire and they assume he's from Texas. So it is a story about the old having to get to grips with the modern, whether they like it or not. I think for a lot of people that's a message they don't want to hear, because a lot of people like to feel they have autonomy, that they can work outside the system, that they're not beholden to the system. And I think that's why a lot of people might lean in a bit harder to Dirty Harry. They like that more renegade style of Dirty Harry and the fact that he gets away with it enough to come back for 4 sequels. Whereas I think I actually do prefer this film, and that's not because I'm, someone who's like, he rigidly wants to work in the system, but I do think it is a reality of life that you have to face the fact that systems are all around us, and we can't really escape them no matter how hard we try. So yeah, it's a complex film, more complex than I think people give it credit for, and I think a lot of people are quite down on this and see it simply as the precursor to Dirty Harry, and because of that they dismiss it. Whereas for me, I feel like I got a bit more out of this than I did with Dirty Harry. I don't know. I'm going to have to watch Dirty Harry again, to be honest. But from my memories of it, I feel like I enjoyed this one more. There's some really nice bursts of action in here as well. There's a barroom brawl in which Coogan kind of catches up with the villains and gets 7 bells knocked out of him, but does a pretty good job of taking a few out along the way. And there's a really exciting motorbike chase right at the end of the film, which kind of reminded me of a little bit of the French Connection, only with bikes and in a different location. But just the frenetic pace of it and the way it was shot was quite exhilarating. Obviously, it predates as well, the French Connection. So I don't know, maybe Friedkin saw this and thought, you know what, I feel like I can do a little bit better, but with cars, and he does, admittedly. But yeah, I do feel like maybe this was a bit of an inspiration for the French Connection in many ways. Eastwood's on fine form here as well. I don't think he's like, breaking the mold in any particularly grand fashion, but if you like Eastwood, based on everything you might have seen him in before this film, then you're going to like him here. It's just, yeah. He's essentially taking the character, or a variation on the characters he played in the Westerns, and sticking them into a modern day city. And for my money, that's money well spent. Another highlight is Lee J. Cobb, a favourite of mine. I really love On the Waterfront, one of my favourite movies of all time. Of course, 12 Angry Men as well, he's really great in. And he's excellent here. So he plays Lieutenant McElroy. He's the man in charge of the New York City Police, that are kind of in charge of running this case. And I like the little back and two between him and Coogan throughout the film. I like that, again, he's one of these guys who assumes he's from Texas and makes a few jibes, although you get the sense that this man is intelligent enough to know that he's actually not from Texas, but does this deliberately to try and kind of wind him up. And so it's nice that he shows a little bit of respect towards him at the end, by acknowledging that he's from Arizona. But also it is that thing that this guy does sit on the side of the law that works within the system. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, you could paint this guy as a villain. Oh, you work for the man, so we're going to paint you as a douchebag, and we down with the man. And I get that mentality, and that mentality kind of works for some films, depending on the story you're telling. But no, you get the sense that this guy's just, look, he knows his job. He knows how he's got to do it. He gets frustrated like anyone else, but he has to work within the system. So he plays it that way. And yeah, so I like the character. I like the way that Cobb plays him. And I particularly like the back and two we get between these two main characters throughout the film. Tisha Sterling as Linny Raven is also very good. So she is like the right-hand woman of the man that Coogan is trying to track down. And yeah, she's a nut job. She's clearly like, I think the closest approximation I could make is Harley Quinn. She's Harley Quinn to the Joker. She's someone who could very much easily blend in to normal society if she so chooses, but turn on a dime and become an absolute nut job. Yeah, I like her. She's a playful character. She's quite fun to watch. Susan Clark, who plays Julie Roth, doesn't fare quite as well because she played not so much in the performance department. She performs perfectly fine, but she plays a psychiatrist, and she kind of gets used by Coogan, essentially. He just uses her in order to get to Linny, in order to get to the bad guys. And yeah, there's a misogynistic streak to that, but that's in keeping with who they're presenting this character to be. And it's just one more element of the old that needs to kind of get up to date with the system. So I'm okay with that. I think misogyny in films can work if you're making a commentary on it. And I think to some degree they are, because everything about Coogan that they're saying is in the past and needs to get with the program. So part of that is his misogynistic treatment of women, particularly this character, this psychiatrist. He uses her to get to his man. My main problem with her character is that towards the end of the film, rather than saying, you know what, you use me, screw you, she still has a bit of a soft spot for him, and you're kind of thinking, woman, please get to grips with yourself. Have some self-respect. So I really loved Coogan's Bluff. If you haven't seen it, but you're a fan of Dirty Harry, check it out and come into it, as I say, looking at it as sort of the flip side of the same coin. Not just a pre-run to Dirty Harry, but a film that actually has maybe similar things to say, but with an opposite outcome. I was highly entertained by it, I gotta say. If you have seen it, then as usual, I would like to know what you think about it. Please leave your thoughts on Coogan's Bluff down in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video, and until next time, cracking.